I thirst. How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, the Samaritan woman, if you knew the gift of God, and who it is that is saying to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. I thirst. That is part of the suffering on the cross. Dehydrated, baking in the sun. We are made of water, and water is pouring out. And there is no relief. Oh, the Romans had a kind of a rough medical assistance in dying. They would give really strong drink laced with, not quite opium, but a concoction that would dull the pain. That was what they offered him. He said no to that. But he's still thirsty. I had spoiled vinegar, spoiled wine that sort of has been out in the sun for a long time. Roman wine was really, really strong. Only Roman soldiers could drink it uncut. People would always have to put water into it because it was so powerful. But turned off by the sun, they hear the cry, I thirst. Can you imagine what his voice would have sounded like? How did they hear it? Amidst all of the noise around him. Think of the noise that surrounded him. People coming and going on the Skull Hill, right next to a passageway, completely naked, shamed. Soldiers sitting around doing what soldiers do, dicing, whiling away the board hour, peeing against his cross, the moaning of the people next to him, and thirst, unbelievable thirst. I thirst. And so they put a sponge to his lips, filled with this awful wine. Yet, this is the second part of the mystery of abandonment on the cross. Jesus is fully human, unseparated and unmixed with his divinity. One person, two natures. Our nature that he bore cried out to God, and now the divine nature cries out, I thirst. History is the story of people living, struggling with pushing God away. Ever since the tree was eaten from, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, human beings have said, thank you very much. I have my plans for how I'm going to build my house and my life and my kingdom and my family and my day-to-day. Thank you. Thank you. I'm God. If only you knew the gift, Jesus said to the Samaritan woman. If only you knew the gift, God says to generation after generation. If only you knew the gift. People live what seem to be rich and distracted lives, but are so profoundly out of tune because they don't know the gift. Has that been our problem? Has that been my fault? Me, clergy, person, parent, person, uncle, person? Is it because the way that I live the gift doesn't look like gift? So they're not interested in the gift? Is it that somehow I have not been able to be the voice of Jesus to the Samaritans that are looking, having planned their life and how it's going to be, and it ends up looking like 7 husbands, a midday running away from the gossiping biddies in the town, on a hot day, all alone, trying to keep it all together. Am I, in my voice, in my life, am I the abundance of God saying, if only you knew? We can be that voice. Precisely and only when we recognize the unbelievable mystery of God's longing for us. The God who creates heaven and earth, who weaves together the billion stars in the billion galaxies, the God of unimaginable fulfillment, has emptied God's self in love so much that he makes himself, God makes God's self vulnerable to me. He created me, knowing, like every parent knows, that from that moment on, he is vulnerable. You'll never be safe in your bed again, Jesse, because you have children. Their ups and their downs will be yours, as every parent in here knows. Totally and utterly vulnerable. The priest, when he's ordained, lies flat on the floor. Anyone can come and step on him. Couples, when they get married, stand on the edge, holding each other's hands, putting themselves, making themselves vulnerable, because that's what love does. That's what God does. God makes God's self vulnerable to each one of us. He longs for us. He thirsts for us. The billion stars are as nothing compared to each one of us. Because the billion stars are not made in his image and likeness. The billion stars are not the stuff of eternity. You and I are. How vulnerable he is. When you're vulnerable, when you love, and when you see that those you love are not being loved, when you look from your cherubim throne and see the rich resources of Venezuela parked next to the most powerful and self-satisfied country on the planet, and I mean Canada. And you see them fleeing from your cherubim throne, that your beloved ones can't pay any attention to you because they are starving. There is anger, for there is always anger in love sadness. When you see a distracted generation caught away in the cheap display of frittering ideas that reveal how shallow educational systems are, because all they can do is find ways to allow their children to be colonized by the place of dissipation online and in computer, so that they cannot know abundance but only know the dopamine hit after one dopamine hit with the video game, with the text message, with the Facebook post, with the pornographic image, and they don't know their deep longing. From your cherubim throne, you are angry, because that's love's sadness. Yes, someone has to pay a price. We don't like that in our culture, right? I feel bad. Okay. Yeah, I've discovered a new marriage. Bye, all of ya. I'm on my way. Be happy for me because I'm fully alive. Right? Oh, gee, I'm sorry that you feel that way. We just walk over people. No consequences. We're entitled to everything. Clergy, I'm a priest. I get to do what I want. Won't you hide me from the evil that I do? Entitlement. I'm the head of government. I'm smarter than you. And God is sad. And God is mad sad. And God is love sad mad. Because he thirsts to pour his goodness into his children's heart. And his children have been distracted by the old accuser. Someone has to pay the price. Everything that is done must have a consequence. And so God, in his thirsting for us, says, okay, I will bear the consequence of your mad, sad making of my love. And God, whom heaven and earth cannot contain, for love of each of us and all of us, tastes, how I do not know, but I do know that you do, O God. For you, God the Son, with the voice of the Father, with the pent-up energy of the Spirit, say, I thirst. In Calcutta, at Mother Teresa's foundational home, the crucifix hangs over the altar. And there are two words: I thirst. And every poor person that she picked up and bathed, and everyone we smile at, every prayer we offer, every protest we raise, every engagement in the world to bring forth justice is a sponge filled with strange wine, held up to the lips of the Son of God.